Alright guys, welcome back. My name is Leland Baptist. I am one of the private bankers for Lee-Chandler. And today we're going to talk about 401k and also who is the 401k for, okay? So before we actually get into some of the illustration that we're going to use the board for, it's important to know what is the 401k or really where did it come from, okay? A lot of times people think that the 401k has been around for ages or eons or hundreds of years. That's not the case. I'm going to read directly from 401k history from my phone, and we're going to have a screenshot for you guys as well. All right, so please follow along. A brief history of 401k. A 401k is a tax-deferred defined contribution retirement plan. The name comes from a section of the Internal Revenue Code that permits an employer to create a retirement plan to which employees may contribute a portion of their wages on a pre-tax basis. Okay, on a pre-tax basis. Now, when did this so-called 401k come into existence? In its relatively short history, just 30 years as far as when this was written, the 401k plans have many milestones. 1978, Congress passed the Revenue Act of 1978, which includes a provision that allows employees to avoid being taxed on a portion of income that they decide to receive as deferred compensation rather than direct pay. Okay? Now, all that mumbo jumbo means is this, is that the 401k plan is relatively new. All right, 1970s. We all know someone who has lived, who is still living, who was born in like the 1970s. So it's not very old. But we have to know this: the 401k plan was actually made for employers to help assist their employees. Okay. Now, an important thing that I said in the reading is this. Portion. Let's think about this. It is meant to be a retirement plan that will benefit for a portion, not all of your income or salary. So, for example, there are some, depending on your age, you may be limited to a portion to invest on an annual basis, 5%. Okay, we're talking 5% of your income. I want you to think about this very intently. If you work for a company as an employee and you set aside 5% of your income, your annual income, for 20 years, and it's quote unquote tax deferred, okay, tax deferred. Deferred. Something that people don't always think about. They say, yeah, I invest in my 401k and it's tax-free. Tax-free is much different from tax-deferred. Tax-deferred just means that as you put that money in, it's not taxed. But there's a high possibility that once you take that money out, it will be taxed. And a big reason of why it may or may not be taxed is based off your age. Why is it based off your age? And that magic number for age is 59 years and a half. So I'm going to say 59 and a half years. Okay? Why is that important? Because if you take money out of your 401k at the age of 50, and you're obviously at 50, you are younger than 59 and a half, then you are going to be taxed. There are people who may retire at the age of 45. If they take money out of their retirement plan or 401k before they are 59, they may also be taxed. Now, let's talk about the tax. How will that affect you? When we talk about tax, we're talking about somewhere between 20 to 35% will be taxed. Okay? Now that's 20 and 35% of your own money that will be taxed. All right. So when someone says something about their 401k, the best way I say to some of my clients, not all, is that your 401k really should be looked at as a savings account that gains interest over time. Your 401k should not be looked at as a vehicle or an asset that is going to give a large amount of money over time. It's very, very rare. For most people, where they have their 401k growing leaps and bounds, it's normally when they are corporate executives that happen to own huge amounts of type A stocks of their own company. Okay, and I'm not gonna get too far into that, but put it to you this way: if someone started their own company, or better yet, Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway has what's called A and B stocks. Okay, their A stocks, quote unquote, and it actually says the ticker is actually Berkshire Hathaway A. Those A stocks are the initial equities of Berkshire Hathaway. Okay, that's why the value is so high. Those A stocks have never been broken up or chopped up further than where they are now. What happens a lot of times, though, is in your 401k, you have very, very small derivatives of equities of different companies. Okay, so what normally happens is someone puts their money in 5% annually into a 401k plan. And you are asked, will this be mild? Will this be aggressive? Will this be a mixture of both? Will you be conservative? So forth, right? You have all these different risk tolerances that they ask you about. And based on what you decide, they have already pre-packaged and pre-planned various equities or assets, which are really just assets on the stock exchange to put your money in. And what you normally find out in your 401k plan is one of the biggest assets that they advocate for you to put your money in is actually your company stock plan. Now I want you to think about this. The IRS, or our government, somewhat, or Congress, passed that law in the 1970s to encourage employees to allow their encourage employers to allow their employees to invest the wages that they receive from their employer essentially back to either their employer or another company. Think about that for a second. So look at it this way. You as the employee and we're gonna name our employee Bob, okay? So Bob is the employee. Bob makes let's say $100,000 a year. Okay? He annually makes $100,000. Bob may be taxed at 25, 35% annually from the IRS. And Bob decides that he's going to invest 5% of his annual wages into the 401k plan, the company 401k. Now, the company or the employer and we're going to name that company ABC Corp. ABC Corp gives Bob a benefit or an incentive or a buy one get one or purchase one stock and get the other 50% off. But they're encouraging Bob to take his earned or disposable income, depending on the individual, but essentially his earned income, and to reinvest it, his earned income, into the company, because that's the company stock program. So essentially, they're giving Bob benefits to reinvest into the company that he's already working for. So essentially, what ends up happening is that the company the company is actually receiving benefits of Bob working, as if he's working $100,000 a year, but essentially what Bob is receiving before taxes is the $95,000, because 5%, of course, is going towards the company stock program. And I hope that makes sense. Is a big portion of someone's 401k plan is oftentimes different stock. This could be on the New York Stock Exchange, could be on the NASDAQ, et cetera, et cetera. But essentially what it is you're investing in shares or equity based off of your tolerance, all right? What has happened most recently is that Congress made another law to your 401k that now allows you to, quote unquote, decide what investments that you want to invest in, okay? Decide what investments you want. So instead of you receiving your paycheck from ABC Corp, and instead of you going ahead and giving 5% of your paycheck right back to ABC Corp, right, pre-taxed or post-tax, depending on how you have it structured, now you have the ability to go ahead and invest in a different type of asset, all right? And what I suggest people invest in are assets that you can actually control, because unless you are a executive at ABC Corp, unless you are the CEO, you don't really control too many decisions on what goes on. Okay, you don't have a huge controlling power on how that asset performs. All right. Now there are other assets that someone can invest in that you can easily control what is actually going on, and those are the assets that we normally suggest for our clients to place their capital in. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned more about a 401k and who it's for. Just as a quick review, a 401k plan is initially made for the benefit of employees, which gives the employer the ability to go ahead and give their already earned income, where it can now be invested without penalty of tax. Sometimes that tax can be deferred. Sometimes it can be pre-taxed, et cetera, okay? A big factor in your 401k plan is going to be your age. No matter when you choose to retire, if you pull out your money before the age of 59 and a half, you will be taxed, okay? That tax can be anywhere between 20 to 35% or even more. And the most important thing is to know that with a 401k plan, that plan is really to be looked at as more of a savings account that has the ability to accrue interest over time. I would not look at a 401k plan as something that will actually put money in your pocket directly. Okay? Thanks so much.